On today's episode of Locked On Phoenix Suns, we'll answer your questions about Kevin Durant, TV, next year's Phoenix Suns' chances to win the title, and much more. But first, did Kevin Durant make a mistake with how he has handled all of this? We'll dive into all of it on today's episode of Locked On Suns.
You are Locked On Suns, your daily Phoenix Suns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, we are back. This is Locked On Phoenix Suns. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, and I'm your host, Brendon Kleen, a credentialed media member covering the Suns for the past 5 seasons and a writer at Suns.com and Dime Magazine. A big thanks to everyone making Locked On Suns your first listen here on this Thursday. We're free everywhere. If you're finding us on your favorite podcast platform, hit follow or subscribe. Make sure you don't miss the show in your feed every day. And if you're finding us on YouTube, shouts to you. That's the best way to support the show. Hit subscribe down below. Drop me a comment answering this question we're about to get to on Kevin Durant. And I want to welcome Aaron Edwards back. He is here for his weekly check-in. Aaron, let's just dive right into it. We're going to answer everybody's questions. We got stuff on the rest of the roster. We got stuff on apparently I need to ask you about your gin takes as well as your beer takes. I don't know why people hate you for what you think of alcohol, but we'll get to all of that. I want to start with something Jake Fisher said on his radio, whatever it is, on Call-In this week, where he said, this is per Ralph Mason on Twitter. He said, when KD demanded a trade, he thought there was an easy path to Phoenix. I wonder if you think that's true, if you think that was true on June 30th, and if you still think that it's true right now.
I thought it was when it dropped, like we all kind of saw the route that it was supposed to take. I feel like everybody saw it as clear as day. Ayton, some picks, maybe Mikal Bridges and Cameron Johnson. Like, we all saw that. It wasn't like a thing that we made up. And KD's smart, too. I'm pretty sure he just thought that was going to be the thing, too. Like, even 3 teams, DA, some picks, sign and trade, Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson. Like, it just seemed like it was going to be that simple, and it just turned out not being that.
But like the thing is, like, so I got some people in my mentions about this too, because I quote tweeted that tweet and said there is. I still think there is. Like, I think a large part of what's going on right now, when there's this sort of out of nowhere uptick in rumors again of Jaylen Brown, we talked about that with Kellen Olson earlier in the week, or you're just hearing more specific chatter, I think, than you were. And it feels to me like the Nets kind of know the trade has to happen at some point. Like that still feels true to me. I still don't buy that they're going to go into next season, because you've seen that. If you read articles about this too, not just, the quick stuff on TV or whatever, the people writing about this either locally or nationally are saying, like, there's a lot of skepticism that the Nets would actually do that, and that they're maybe getting a little bit antsy. So I think that the impetus to deal him is still there, and I think those rumors are the Nets trying to drive up the price, trying to reignite the stuff. I just think the reason it hasn't happened is actually more about the Suns. I think the Suns are kind of cocky right now, to be honest with you. Like, I feel like they are sitting there, James Jones is sitting there like, nothing's playing out for you guys, Brooklyn, the way that you want it to, and we're right here. We have a better offer than what we've put out there, but we're not going to offer it yet. And I kind of think there still is an easy path if the Suns just actually give everything that they can give, and then the Nets can kind of qualify it as a win. I think that's where we're at right now. I still think that there is that easy path. I don't think KD was wrong to think that.
Yeah, I think that James Jones, I trust him to be smart enough to know that he can't put this current roster out on the floor and think he's going to get to the second round, third round? Like, he can't think that this roster can do what it did last year or even 2 years ago. So I'm just trusting that he's not ridiculous enough to play this so terribly that he really thinks the fans in general are going to be fine with him putting this roster out on the floor and trusting it. Like, we watched what happened to Dallas, and now it's just older and with pretty much not the momentum that we had before. And I just trust that he's not dumb enough to, for lack of a better word, to think that we're going to trust this roster that he's going to put out there and just be like, well, he tried, but it didn't happen. Like, it's just not going to go that way.
I was going to ask if there's anything Kevin Durant could have done better, but I just think the way he went about it, which is basically let things play out with Kyrie, kind of, feel things out. Don't make a snap decision right after that sweep, and then call the owner directly the day that free agency is about to get kicked off or the week that free agency is about to get kicked off, and just tell him to his face. Like, that's about as mature and normal as it could have been. So I don't even know if there is anything really.
I think it was the act of it. I think it was the act of a dude that thought it would happen fast. Like, he did it like that because he thought it would just be like, all right, I called Marks. I did this right. I played it right. I know what the Suns can do. This will be done in the next couple of days. And that's how we treated it. Yeah. So I think KD really thought like he was going to be a Sun or a Heat by Monday, and it just didn't go that way.
No, he, as bad as of a 4th of July as we all thought we had waiting for it, imagine his. He's like, damn, I'm still in net. What is even going on here? But my question, like I was saying, is, have you ever negotiated? Because I hear about some of this stuff, or like, what's the most significant negotiation situation that you've been in your life? Because I know it's just basketball, but there's millions of dollars at stake, and these people treat this stuff really seriously. And sometimes I hear about this and I'm like, I would just give in. Like, I would have given in on July 5th. Take Mikal, take Cam, take anything you want. I want Kevin Durant because I'm honestly just too anxious to continue to do this back and forth with you, Sean Marks. If I was James Jones, I would have caved day one. Have you negotiated in any sort of high profile or tense situation in your life, Aaron?
I feel like negotiations now are easy. Like you just have to show your work and what you got paid before. And if it's below that number, then you just don't take it. But like when I was deciding on colleges, like to play football, it was really hard to figure out like what I wanted to do and where I wanted to go. And so that's when you start going like, are my books paid for? Like, can I get this room? Like, what's my meal plan?
Is there a local car dealership that might be able to slip me something here or there?
Yeah, so like it wasn't like hardcore because they have the stuff. It's just whether they want to give it to you. And that's kind of just probably the most intense negotiating I did. It was like, do I want to play here? And what do you got for me? Kind of thing.
The most recent job that I got is at ASU, and they don't really negotiate because everything has to be public. It's like, if you're applying for this job, you're making between this and this range, and don't bother if you're not, because we're not like legally allowed to go outside of that once we've submitted it for posting, basically. So I can't sympathize. I've lived a boring life. I haven't had a hostage or kidnapping situation. I haven't been Liam Neeson and Taken. There's really just not a lot there, but it is like a game of chicken, right? And like, that's why I think a lot of us have been coming down on the fact that like, if KD just decides to say something here and force somebody's hand, then and that's what you're seeing in the reporting now too, is like everybody around the league is just kind of waiting to see what he says. He's in New York again this week for the premiere of the documentary. So everybody is reading into that to, does that mean he's going to talk to some, like, I don't know, but we're all kind of waiting because there doesn't seem like there's anything that's going to flip anybody's hand one direction or the other outside of KD saying something. I guess it's just who gets more desperate more quickly at this point.
Yeah. And like, it was like supposed to happen so fast that I was mostly on the side of it's more desperate for Brooklyn. But now, like, the closer we get to the season with this roster that we have, and still changes to do after it's done, whether we get KD or not. Like, if we get KD, we still have work to do on the roster. I just think the pressure is on James Jones now, and I'm not sure we're treating it as extreme as we should be.
Yeah, and you've started to see it. Kellen Olson wrote something this week. I talked to him about it on the podcast earlier in the week. Like, if it gets to, like, there's this idea on the Nets side of like, oh, well, if it waits till camp, they're going to have to deal with an unhappy superstar and this and that. If it gets to camp and the Suns haven't done anything, you're going to hear a lot of pissed off Suns fans, and it's going to be up to James Jones to be able to stomach that. So I don't exactly think Kevin Durant could have done anything differently here, but I also don't think it's on him. And the more that I sit with this, I just think the Suns need to kind of put their chips into the middle of the table here and just really at least go back to negotiating. But let's answer some questions, Aaron. We'll start with something on the Kevin Durant front to keep this conversation going. First, today's show, guys, brought to you by Built Bar. If you haven't tried Built Bar Puffs yet, you are just depriving yourself of one of life's greatest joys. And guess what? There's a new flavor coming right to you. Delicious, indulgent cookie dough covered in chocolate. Built has done it again with the cookie dough chunk puff, a light and chewy texture, real cookie dough chunks, and of course, again, covered in 100% real chocolate. All the joys of eating cookie dough without the hassle of making it. Plus, of course, as a Built product, it's healthy for you. Only 160 calories and a whopping 15 grams of protein. If you've never had a Built Puff before, they're the first ever protein-infused marshmallow, and they are just throwing out, just honestly, like they have too many good ideas here with the flavors. Cookie dough sounds incredible. I have not checked my parents' house to determine whether there is a batch waiting for me, but that's where they get delivered so that they don't melt on my patio. I can't wait to try it. You should too. Built.com, guys. Promo code LOCK15 to get 15% off your next order. That's promo code LOCK15 for 15% off at Built.com. All right, Aaron. So quickly on this one, I'll just ask for your perspective because I went through it yesterday, but it is on people's minds. This is from William at William1837808 on Twitter. Do the Suns have a backup plan if they don't trade for KD? I mean, the answer is there's not a big backup plan. They're not getting another superstar. But is there anything you see on the table that they can do outside of bench moves if this Kevin Durant thing doesn't play out?
I think to save face even a little bit, we've talked about this, and I'm really on the side of it, getting Jordan Clarkson. I think that would just be good for the bench. It would give us another scorer, and it would just help a lot more. Get in as far as any other thing, this team is still really good. I'm not trying to knock out the roster, and they still got really far and had a great season, and it's still just a really good team. I just think come playoff time, we saw it. We just didn't have enough bucket getters. And I've said this on this show so many times. We just didn't have it. And I just think having a dude like Clarkson that can get a bucket in isolation, a tough one, and get to the rim, we just need a dude like that.
There was an interesting one. Who was it? I'll find who it was, but the question was, which happens first between the Sarver report coming out and the Kevin Durant trade? What do you think comes first this offseason?
I'm shocked that the Sarver news isn't out yet. And they made it sound like it was going to happen immediately after the finals. So I'm thinking KD trade. I can't put a finger on this Sarver thing just because it should have been out already. And I guess the KD trade should have been done already, but this has been in the workings for a really long time.
I do appreciate for the content that the NBA gods have allowed us to have both of these things linger. I would say that the Sarver thing comes out soon. I think that the team will drop it or that the league will drop it in August because they'll just want to find a time when people are not paying attention. That was from @Sunderous. That was from @Sunderous Dunks on Twitter. Longtime listener. Appreciate you on that one. I have another question on Sarver on that note, Aaron. So this is from Antilocos @Antilocos. He is also a longtime listener. He asked if Sarver is forced out. Do you think there's local money to take over the team, or are we looking at an out-of-town owner?
Well, first, I think if the league wanted him gone, he would have been gone by now. So I think that we need to get it out of our heads already that Sarver is going to be in enough trouble to sell the team. It's just not going to happen. The Donald Sterling thing felt like it happened very quickly, but mostly because the league wanted to get rid of him. But Sarver would have been gone right now if they found something that they deemed super egregious. I think the stuff that came out was disgusting, but the league, you have to do a lot of pretty terrible things to lose a basketball team. And I think in the league's eyes and Adam Silver's eyes, I'm not sure Sarver's done enough to do that. So that's the first part. But if it were to somehow happen, I think it would just be an out-of-towner or.
Let me read you the richest people in Arizona, okay? Because I pulled this up to prep here. Who would your guess be for, at least you don't have to know the people's name, but we can say guy. We know how America works.
Yeah.
Who's the richest guy in Arizona? If you had to guess, what company did they own or invest in or whatever? Do you have any idea?
I have no clue. What Filiberto's? Like, I don't know, dude.
U-Haul. It's U-Haul.
Really?
Yeah, U-Haul was based here. Was founded here. The Showens, however you say it. I think it's a father and son or father and brother. I'm not old enough to know the story. Apparently, it got really ugly family-wise. I was poking around at their story. So Mark Schoen is worth. This article's from Patch earlier this year, so I'll assume it's true. $4.7 billion, and then Joe Schoen, $4.1 million. So they're really old though, but I guess they could be the people if it was going to stay local. I don't know if they're based here. You know, billionaires live in a million places, but that could theoretically be local. You also have GoDaddy, Carvana, both founded here, and their owners, Bob Parsons of GoDaddy, Ernest Garcia of Carvana. But the interesting one that I had for you that hasn't gotten mentioned, and I kind of wonder why, is Art Moreno, the Los Angeles Angels owner.
Yeah.
Because he's already a sports owner. He is somebody who's pretty prominent for, you know, instituting diversity stuff in his organization. And it could be like one of those things that the league might like to bring in. He's a much better, like, public facing type of character, even though the Angels have sucked forever, than Robert Sarver is. Is Art Moreno going to own the Suns? I'm posing it now. I'm putting it out there.
I mean, those dudes love owning multiple teams. Like, that's like an owner's dream. I mean, it's not working well in Boston, obviously, but I think that, I mean, the Red Sox, but I think a lot of those dudes like owning multiple teams. And I don't know, owning an Arizona team and a California team just seems weird to me, though.
That's true. People have talked about, what's his name? Bob Iger. I don't think that's going to happen. He's also not very rich, is the thing that gets lost in that one. But yeah, he has a good relationship with Jerry Colangelo. He tried to buy the Diamondbacks at one point in time. He's a Mexican immigrant lived in Tucson, went to U of A. I don't know. I'd be pretty down with that. That's much cooler story than Robert Sarver, who's just like the kid who got a bunch of money from his dad to start a bank.
That does seem more believable, like living in Tucson and just having Arizona ties in general. I can see that happening just because it would make the most sense. But like I said before, Sarver's not losing the team.
I agree with you. I do not foresee that happening. I think you're right. I mean, to an extent, I agree with you. I think if the Suns were, if the NBA knew that was going to be the end of this thing, they would have at least had something in motion that doesn't just happen quickly. I mean, like Steve Ballmer filed a counter lawsuit for whatever it's called when you decry somebody's name, libel suit, countersuit to the NBA that I think the NBA actually, they might have settled for like a little bit of money, or maybe he just dropped it. I don't remember, but like that's a huge thing. And we would have had some sign of it already. I think the fact that it's dragged means there's going to be some punishment, but that's them figuring out what it is. One quick one, rapid fire here from Eugenius05. He is at Yevgeny Kagasov on Twitter. Do you believe this is Chris Paul's last realistic season to win a ring, Aaron?
Yeah, I think that, I mean, at the level that he's playing, and I just don't think he has it in him to do what I'm thinking right now, but to take less of a load, sit more games, and kind of just rest till the playoffs. I don't think he has it in him to do that. So, yeah, I think realistically, the Chris Paul that wants to play the way that he wants to play, I think that this is the last time we're probably going to see it. Yeah,
in 2006, Gary Payton, when he won it with the Heat, was 38. So you could see that, right? He actually played more and played better. If you ever go back, I don't know what made me. Oh, he was on the JJ Redick podcast a little bit ago. So I went back and looked at his stats. He was better on that Heat team than you remember, even at age 38. It was like this bounce back season for him out of nowhere, and he had to play a bunch for whatever reason, injuries and whatnot. I think Jason Williams might have been hurt most of the regular season. Yeah, so there's always the chance that happens, or like the Tracy McGrady with the Spurs, didn't he win a ring toward the end? Like maybe that type of thing.
Oh, no, they lost to the Heat, but
it was that year, right? He didn't.
Yeah, that was his last year.
Stay on that second season with them when they won it in 2014. So
I just think that Chris Paul, like the blueprint is out now, and that's what the problem mostly was he wasn't shooting the ball in the playoffs, but he was just getting switched and full court press and exhausted later on. Like, I don't know how you undo people wanting to do that. So I just think that just game plan wise, this just might be it.
I think you're right, and it's going to be predicated on can he settle into a smaller role. Like if he can do that, then maybe he is a backup point guard for some championship team. If he doesn't win it this year, if they get Kevin Durant, or even if they don't, maybe a little less likely. But if they get Kevin Durant, he could win it this year. But if it is a smaller role, it's just going to be, will he actually take that smaller role? All right, let's get into some fun stuff here. We've already been having fun, but let's get into some more fun stuff. Starting with Aaron, I'll give you like the 25 seconds here that we're about to pause to come up with your top 5 Suns players of all time. After a quick break, we'll dive in. All right, back with more of your questions answered on the Phoenix Suns mailbag edition of the show today. This is from Jesse at Jestopian. Appreciate you always listening and having some jokes at our expense, Jesse. But here is not a joke. We'll get into one of the jokes from her in a second. But this one's serious, okay? Top 5 Suns players of all time. Did I give you enough time? Do you have this list handy? Are you going to forget somebody since I put you on the spot?
Yeah, I got it.
Okay. All right, I'll have you go first with you go 5-1, and I'll pause in between each one. We can talk about it, and I'll try to think of mine because I actually did not prep well enough while you go through yours. All right, start with 5.
Okay, 5. I'm going to go Chris Paul.
Okay. Yeah, he's not one I think about very much, honestly. Like, I forget about it because I don't know why. Yeah, I mean, he's been healthy. Like, you don't, like, in 10 years, we won't look back at it as like, oh, well, he was 36 and 37. Like, it kind of won't matter. I feel like we'll just remember how good he was.
Yeah.
Than anything. All right.
So Chris Paul, Sean Marion for.
Okay. Yeah.
This one took me a while because I've been fighting between these two all day. So I'm just gonna say whichever one comes to my head first. I'm going Joe Johnson 3. It was gonna be with
Sean Marion.
Yes, I love Joe Johnson. I'm sorry.
Okay, how much of this? Yeah, this is your top 5, right? Like you're not saying these are the 5 best in order Suns players, right? Just for the audience to understand.
Yeah, these are my top 5.
Yes. Okay.
And I wanted to say Amari, but I just couldn't. Like, I'm still gonna wrestle with picking Joe Johnson over Amari. But I just love Joe Johnson. Like, he was just so good and he was fun, and we didn't give him this money and he left. And that's just the story of a lot of our players. And the last 2 are pretty easy. It's Nash and Book. Okay.
Yeah. What's your opinion? Well, which one's first? Book is first?
Yeah, Book is first.
Okay. Yeah, I think so too. I don't know. Let me ask you this. I don't know why every time we get on this show together, I want to like meander my way into trashing Steve Nash a little bit. I did that a couple weeks ago, and I love him. Like anyone who grew up here or cares about the Suns at all loves Steve Nash. But are there did he stick with you? Like, I don't find myself thinking about him when I'm just kind of like, I don't know, scrolling through one of those feeds of like historic NBA videos or whatever it might. Like, I just don't. I know his game wasn't really like that either as part of it. Yeah. I don't know. Like,
it's not like
it's getting worse.
It's not like his game wasn't flashy though. Like, he was just fun. Like, if you really looked at it, the fake passes, the hesitations, like, he got to get to the lane as much as he wanted. Like, he wasn't a strong dude, but he got to the lane and he got to the rim whenever he wanted still, and he made the right pass. Like, he was really fun to watch, and he always made the right decision.
Yeah, of course he's at the top, like 2-3, but it's just weird to me. Like maybe it's on me and I just need to go back. I went back and watched a ton of the playoff games because we did like look back stuff on the show during the beginning of the pandemic, and I was watching like straight up like on YouTube. They'll have the majority of those old games. They're usually cut up into like 8 parts because people have whatever restrictions on YouTube, but they're there. I might need to just do some homework. I have my top 5 though. Number 5, Boris Diaw. I absolutely love Boris Diaw. He was I have a signed picture, like laminated photo of Boris Diaw that was a birthday gift that somebody gave me once upon a time, because that was how like much of a reputation I had as a kid for loving Boris Diaw. So he's number 5. Do you have any connection to Boris?
My Boris Diaw connection, he was fun as a son, but I envision him. I see Spurs still. Like, I see Spurs Diaw whenever I close my eyes. So it's just one of those things where I know who he was when he was here, and he was fun, and that team was fun, and just how we used them. But when I see Boris Diaw, I think of Spur.
The scoring is what's always insane when you go back and look at his numbers. Like, he was scoring 20-30 in playoff games. It makes absolutely no sense. Also, even as a Spur, the Suns sucked most of the time that the Spurs were using him. So I was still happy to root for him. And he was like locking LeBron down in some of those finals games. I do not get it. Not locking him down, but like the most you can do against LeBron. All right. Number 4, Mikal Bridges.
Oh,
I just, and part of this is my bias from having covered the team a little bit, his whole career. So it's like one of the guys I have an actual relationship with, but as much as I want to keep talking about KD, it hurts. It hurts when we just throw around his name in these rumors. Like, it doesn't matter because it matters to me. I care deeply. But
I can see why you were team no Mikal Bridges at first. And do we really need to do this? Like, it makes sense now.
I still believe that if it had been an option to give up Ayton, Mikal, and Cam, we would have had to have a conversation about if that was worth it. But the Suns went ahead and got that out of the way for us, so we don't. But I will still miss Mikal if and when he leaves. No matter where he ends up, I will root for him. But number 3, Sean Marion. I've done this rant, I don't even know how many times on this show, with Espo as a guest, with others, but that man not being in the Ring of Honor, the easiest way to be, whether it's Art Moreno or the U-Haul brothers, no matter who becomes the owner of this team, you will become the most treasured dude in this city if you just host a ceremony to put that guy in the Ring of Honor. That's all that needs to happen. It
sucks because he was so good, and he would be one of the top 15 players in the NBA in this current iteration of it. And it sucks that he hates us so much.
Like, he rightly hates us.
He hates us so much. So it just sucks that a player that's so beloved out here hates the place so much.
And Amare, also not in the Ring of Honor. I don't know why Robert Sarver seems to hate the most beloved portion of this franchise's history, but I don't really get it. He should be there too. Mike D'Antoni is in, I believe, but Steve Nash also in, obviously. It would be an easy win, and I hope Marion would agree to come back for it, because otherwise I guess there's no point. Number 2, Steve Nash. Number 1, Devin Booker. I think we're both in alignment there. I will not be slanderous and put Nash any lower than that. I think I would like, people that run the network that this show is on don't even care about Phoenix or the Suns, but I think that they would be required by like the laws of the universe to kick me off if I had Nash any lower than number 2, right? That would just be.
Yeah. My toughest thing wasn't even Nash and Book. I was almost going to put Quentin Richardson on this.
Yes. He was one of my first loves too. I had a Quentin Richardson jersey. I've always been like the type of fan to like obnoxiously do the like, well, yeah, like the best player is cool and all, but this guy. So I would have not blamed you at all. I love. Yeah,
Chris Paul barely made number 5. It was almost going to be Q's spot.
It would have been warranted. That's what was fun about those 7 seconds or less teams. The fact that they change so often is we have so many of those characters that were here for like 1 year, 2 years, and then gone. And it's just like you pick your favorite and that's it. Honestly, my number 6, if we had gone that far, would have been Gerald Green. So I loved that Gerald Green season, like massively underrated. Loved him in Houston with Chris Paul. That type of guy that's like a freak athlete that like kind of barely cuts it in the NBA. That's my favorite type of player.
Yeah, he was exciting too. Like we still got, well, he's always been bouncy, but just having a dude like that on the team. And we still had another, we had Jason Richardson. It's another dude that could have made the cut. Those teams were fun.
We didn't even talk about Barbosa, who's like one of the most beloved fan favorite guys ever. Jared Dudley is another one. PJ Tucker. Yeah, we could go on and on. There's tons. All right, let's get some rapid fire stuff out of the way. We'll save the alcohol debates for another time. There's a lot of actual Suns questions that I want to get to for you guys. Also, August is extremely quiet, so we'll have plenty of time. Some rapid fire from @DuragHoops.
Shout out to my boy Darrell. We hoop together every Sunday.
This will be offline. Somebody needs to write a story about that Suns fan pickup group. I don't know. I know we have like 2 Suns reporters, but that's like the easiest home run story if he could just talk to a bunch of you, because that's a very cool group. But let's get to his question. More likely, Ayton averages 5 to 6 free throw attempts per game, or Mikal averages 15 to 16 points per game. I think this is easy to me.
It's easy, but I want both to happen pretty bad. But I think Ayton getting to the free throw line.
Really? I was going to say the other one.
Really?
I think Mikal, because like what was Mikal at? He was at like 12 this year? Something like that? 12, 13?
I think if Chris Paul is taking less of a load, then Mikal gets more shots, obviously. But I don't know if he finally has it in him to kind of chuck a little bit in the early season to like just get the groove and be kind of a chucker sometimes. I just don't know if he has that in him.
Yeah. His it was 13.5 last year, 14.2 this year. So I think he could get there. I mean, 15 would only be one more point, but even if we just say 16, that's like a couple more shots, and he usually makes 50% of his stuff. Like, I think he could do that. And maybe it is injuries. Maybe that's cheating as an answer a little bit, but I think he could get there. All right. More likely, campaign shooting greater than 37% from 3, or Booker shooting greater than 37% from 3.
So we have to act like Campaign's still on the team right now?
I mean, unless they can get him out in a KD deal, I'm not sure anybody's taking him. So he might be on the team and not play, but I feel like he's going to be on the team.
Booker, like, he's really started off hot last year. So I think he's going to probably shoot more threes than he even shot last year. But I would still give it Booker the lead on that.
Yeah, it's tough because of the volume. I will go Payne shot 44% the year they made the finals 2 years ago.
Yeah, but we're not talking about that anymore. That might be the outlier.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you're probably right. I'll go Book. Okay. More rebounds.
I love the Payne from that year, though.
Of course. Even the bubble, I mean, that's a lie because it was 29 attempts, but he made 15 of them, 52%. More rebounds per game this year, Torrey Craig or Cam Johnson. I think this one is like, is Torrey Craig really going to be on the team? But it is an interesting question more on the Cam side, because I think rebounding is quietly, like if he's going to be the starter long-term here, if they don't get Durant, he needs to rebound better. Do you think that happens this year?
Yeah, I think that the jump for Cam Johnson, I'm still not sure what that is. Probably getting better at, or being more confident shooting off the dribble, but I can see him getting better at rebounding. But it's Torrey Craig. Like, he just still has a lot of work to do on the boards, but so does like a lot of our team.
Yeah, 4.1 rebounds per game for Cam last year, 5.7 per 36 minutes. Just has to be higher than that. And it's like, even the average, like if you look at Jay Crowder's average, it's not great, but you always feel like you can get like a 12 rebound game from Crowder if he's focused on it. I don't feel that way about Cam, even if you knew you needed it from him. I don't know if he gets it, right? Like, I don't know if he gets there in a big one. I think
anytime we had a bad rebounding game, like horrific, Crowder usually kind of gave up everything the next game to like crash the boards and just specifically get boards that game. And I'm not sure if Cam Johnson, even if he had the want to, I'm not sure he just has the body and just the technique yet to crash like that.
Yeah, not to mention the health. I don't think calling him injury prone is really fair necessarily, but it's pretty clear that he is more susceptible to injury when the minutes get up there and stuff like that. He's basically had something fairly substantial every year. And then the most memorable version of that is he's battling with Julius Randle and he gets knocked out for 2-3 weeks because of one hit, right? So that, I think, understandably makes him a little hesitant to go in there. But if he's going to be your starting 4, it's not really an option to be hesitant to go in there and get rebounds. So yeah, it's a fascinating one. I would obviously lean Craig based on everything I'm saying too. I think his body's there. I think he's more of a veteran. He knows that's his role. It's a little easier for him to focus on that, etc. But not convinced Torrey Craig will be on this team. He's the easiest guy, along with Payne, to just throw out in a small trade if they find something that works. But we didn't get to everything, even close. We'll do more of these throughout the rest of the summer as we head toward training camp. But that'll do it for today, guys. Another thanks for making Locked On Suns your first listen. Hit follow, hit subscribe. Make sure we're in your feed every day. And in the meantime, go make Locked On NBA now your second listen to catch up on everything else going on around the league.